Carl and Damon here from Games, Brrraains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short, and it's they made what into a movie. We're going to the Street Fighter universe again. This is the second Street Fighter piece of content we've covered. With obviously Street Fighter, the movie, the 90s one, having been covered many moons ago, but we're focusing on something a little different here. It is a movie, technically, because that's how you'd view it now, but it actually started life as a live action web series released on a Machinima YouTube channel in May 2014. It is Street Fighter Assassin's Fist, which of course, if you need to be told this, was based on Capcom's iconic Street Fighter video game franchise. But with a story that focuses on Ryu and Ken, although I would argue it maybe focuses a little bit more on two other characters, tied in nicely to Ken and Ryu.
Yeah.
You know, because of how much detail is given to those characters and their backstory, and how it pertains to what Ken and Ryu are doing in this. It has since been turned into a full feature film and released by IFC Films in January 2015. I actually reviewed it in 2015 on the website. Yeah, going all the way back to those types of reviews. And I gave it a massive 9 out of 10. Now, I do think I was probably too generous. I think 9 out of 10 is pushing it a little bit. On reflection, I think it's probably more 7.5 to 8 out of 10. But I still think it's a mighty fine film and up there as one of the best Street Fighter films we've had. Truth be told, it's not a high bar. We have Street Fighter the movie, which has nostalgic love for, but is a terrible movie. You have the Chun-Li one, which we've not done yet, and I fucking hated that. Then there's the TV shows we've not looked at and stuff like that. The animated TV film as well, which I know is really strong. So right now, this is kind of the level. So cast, we don't have a big cast, but they are significant. We have Kristen Howard as Ken Masters, Ken. We have Mike Moe as Ryu, Akira Kuyami as Goken, Gaku Space as Goki, and Joey Ansah as Akuma. They're the kind of major names here for, as you can see, quite small cast. I don't know, what do I want to start with here? Should we just dive into it and go? Yeah, we'll dive into the story and then we'll talk as we go along about things we kind of like or don't like. We begin in Japan 1987 at the Goken Dojo, which is hidden away in a deep forest. We then see three men, Ken, Ryu, and their master, Goken, training. An early showcase of some of the fighting stances and moves that gamers will be familiar with. Get used to these sort of montages of he, ha, and so on. However, I will say I like them a lot. I think the look and the vibe I get from is very Street Fighter. Like the stances are one of the things I will properly fucking praise in this is the stances and how every actor, like particularly when it comes to Ki and utilising the powers, how they do it and all that kind of thing. Love that.
I think it's nailed on, you know, and even with like the fighting sequences, if the cast are the ones who did the fighting scenes, which I think they are,
I think so.
I think they absolutely nailed it.
I think so because it's not a badly cut thing. You're seeing faces, you're seeing the bodies. I think they chose actors that could do this as well. Even if some of their acting is a little awkward here and there, it's the dialogue that's the problem. Some of the dialogue
definitely, but
between Ken and Ryu, it's the problem more than anything else.
You know, after finishing this entire thing, I'll admit, when I first started it, I looked at it and thought, flipping out, 2.5 hours, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, 2.5 hours.
It's going to be another bloody, what's his face there, Yuri Ball crap, you know.
Yeah, I can see you thinking, why wouldn't you?
But when I finished it, I said to myself, this is my Ken and Ryu, man. This is my Ken and Ryu, man. This is the ones we should have had, you know. If there was any future stuff. Because this is why I asked you, was this before the Van Damme one?
Yeah, but I don't know why you asked me that, because visually it should have stood out as clearly and clearly not it. But we'll get more into it as we go along. Following that brief montage, we learn a bit more about the three characters as Ken and Ryu race to a lake for more training and Goken narrates. Ken, we basically get a little character development here. Ken, a bit surly and more competitive, whereas Ryu is very respectful. They are clearly close, as Goken says he's been training them for many years, and they're surpassing all expectations. also states he's held back from showing the more complex techniques surrounding a style called and Satsukin. I'm going to struggle with some of these words, but I think I got that one there. Ken and Ryo have different outlooks. As it turns out, Ken is frustrated with the lack of progress with their training. He wants to go home, is planning to go home, and even offers to take Ryo with him, as he is no one but Goken. Ryo refuses, wanting to finish the training, and asks Ken to think about his decision. Ken agrees, but does say his mind is pretty much made up, and they head off to a waterfall. Let's stop here. Location is beautiful, isn't it?
You will understand.
Oh man, the forest, the waterfalls, the lake, it's beautiful. I loved it. The dojos look great. Like, wherever they film this shit hits for me.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's filmed in Japan to me personally.
I presume it is, right? I presume it is actually a location within Japan, because we have to, because you're not building these dojos, right?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a set. These are dojos that exist and are used for films, probably in other movies and things like that.
I mean, even where they mainly have the fights on the water edge, the whole area, it's visually beautiful.
I really loved it. At the waterfall, they meditate, and we cut back to 1979 when Ryo was very young. Ken, an early teen, had an attitude and was brought to the dojo by his father, and Goken agreed to try and train the boy, mainly out of loyalty to Ken's father and his recently deceased wife, Ken's mother. So Ken basically being abandoned, if you want, I think is a better word, at Goken. As the years went by, Ken and Ryo bonded and became basically brothers. And I think the show does, the film does a really good job of showing how that bond works, you know, from the rivalry aspect to how much they do love each other. This film could have gone a certain way. It hints that it's going to go a certain way, but then pulls that rug out at the end. We'll get into that, and whether or not it makes sense, but, you know, we'll cross that bridge. They arrive back at the dojo, and Ryo asks Goken to train them further, much to Ken's annoyance. Goken is less than impressed, but when both describe finding their ki, Goken is pleased and agrees to further their training. Their first test involves them having to hike across the land to find Goken. Again, we see the differences between Ken and Ryo here. It's an arduous journey that takes them several days, eventually arriving at what looks like an abandoned dojo. Goken is waiting for them, and patient that it took them so long. Let's talk about Goken here.
I was wondering when you might arrive.
Boss, impressed we found you?
I had no doubt.
Sensei, ここは
ここが私の育ったところだ.
Fucking love him. Best character. And I'm not even just, this isn't just older Goken, but the younger version of Goken as well. This is a brilliant actor, and we should state now, a lot of this film is spoken in Japanese, and I really appreciate that, because it gives it an authenticity that really works.
Mainly for Goken himself. You know? I mean, Ken and Ryo, and obviously Ken can understand it. He's been around it enough too, which is fantastic. I mean, he nails the part, you know, as a master, as a fighter, and even the younger version of himself.
As a father too.
Yeah, as a father too. Yeah.
There's a scene in the last minute or two of this entire film that make you go. Yes. Following them paying their respects to the previous dojo master Goestu, Ryo asks how he died, and Goku reveals he died in combat like a warrior. Ken finds a boarded up room and goes inside, finding old pictures of a young Goken, a girl, and another bloke, basically. He also finds a book that seems to show moves, like a little guidebook to different stances and things like that. Ryo arrives and tells Ken off for being in there, and Ken hides the book. And you're kind of like, oh, well, it is a problem, isn't it?
I got proper Shenmue vibes, when he finds the little scrolls and it's all in Japanese.
It's a guidebook. It's a guidebook, isn't it? Really, more than anything else. But of course, as well, there's so much traditional Japanese stuff here. So, for example, it is written in traditional Japanese style. When we see Goken writing in his diary, the characters and how it's written, like, I love they've really tried to give it that authentic feel. Ryo then looks at one of the pictures and points out Goken had a brother named Goki. Ken is surprised, and Ryo says there's a lot about Goken neither of them know. See, this is a good example where I'm saying this off camera, but basically, you didn't know this was a web series originally. And I said to you, well, look, if you watched it again, you'd notice parts where it kind of fades away, or there's like a line delivery that's like very final, and it would fade away to the end. This is a good example of where it is there. Oh, there's a lot about Goken we neither of us know. Come back next time. Sometime later, the training in the Atsatsuken style begins, and Goken says that it teaches 3 special techniques that involve generating Hado. Now, this is where they do this incredible thing of making the Street Fighter elements work in reality to still like in a supernatural aspect, so to speak. But they try to make it more believable and about energy that you can take from the land and within you and elements like that. It's like, this works, you know, because the 3 particular techniques are Tatsumuki Senpai Kaya, which I can't say it because you say it really fast in the game. It's the spin kick. Yeah. Then you've got the shuriken. Can't struggle to say it as well, which of course is the jumping uppercut. And then we of course have Hadoken, the fireball, effectively. Badoosh, you know? Goken goes into detail about how they can use their ki to generate power in Hado and make them more powerful. Now, I will say, I think the film gets a bit bogged down with a lot of this elements. There's a lot of talk about ki, Hado, and different versions of Hado and all that, to the point where it's actually difficult to keep up with what they're talking about. So I kind of gave up to a degree in my notes, and I'm going to refer to it mainly as Hado, good and bad. Basically like that. It's a more simple way to explain it. After struggling and getting frustrated, Ryu and Ken ask Goken about how they can achieve the power of nothingness required to summon the power of Hado. Do you see what I mean? Like, this is mentioned a few times, the power of nothingness, but it's not given enough weight or explanation as to what that means. Goken explains that it's difficult, but let's slip that the path they are on is not the only one, claiming though that the one they're on is the purer path. It's harder, but it's purer. They both ask more questions about this other path, and Goken flashes back to when he was younger, learning it from his master alongside his brother. Training continues and begins to get more intense, with Ken and Ryo being pitted against each other. They're equally matched, which makes sense, but Ken ends up coming out the victor and is apologetic to Ryo. But Goken tells him not to be sorry and that Ryo will be grateful for his defeat. Now, I was a big fan of Goken, because what I was worried about was it was going to be a story around Ken getting angrier and angrier because Goken favours Ryu and because Ryo's maybe Japanese and Ken isn't, or elements like that, or like he sees Ryu as better fighter. A lot of this actual film is based around Ken being the better of Ryu, but basically still having anger issues and all elements like that. But what the film does, and I guess I'm going to jump ahead here, is instead of being like those anger issues will be the downfall of Ken, it actually turns to Ken utilising that for his benefit, his energy, where Ryo uses his. And I was like, shit, that works. That works so much better.
Again, the master is perfect. You know, he said, you know, he's praising for his anger and his ability, Ryo for his
calmness and state of mind and all that. And I love the fact that Goken's like, hey Ken, don't apologise, you beat him, mate. Fist bump. Ryo has to learn from defeat.
And so we get a perfect scene again going before, like towards the end, where he talks to both of them separately.
I love that scene. I will. We'll talk about that as well. But Ken's reward is to pick a training dummy, which he's like, really? Is that my reward? However, there's a good reason why it is his reward, because Goken demonstrates Hadoken and wrecks it. Great effects. Love the look of the fireballs. As I said, I love the whole stance and that. And do you know what I mean? It's very, very cool. It reminds me a little bit sometimes of when Sub-Zero is fighting Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat movie, and he's doing that like that. I love that. I love when people are generating power and it looks like it's taking effort. Akuma will really show that. His stance, the Akuma stance,
crazy,
when Ken does it first, I almost popped, man. I was like, that's fucking the Akuma. And I was like, oh, that's what he got from the book, because it's that oof. And of course, Akuma comes from later Street Fighter games, but Akuma is very, very recognisable, you know? Back to 1956 at the same dojo, and we see Goken and Goki are training. The master tells them they are not to train Hado without his permission. Something that Goku is unimpressed by. And I was like, okay, there's the link. He's the little rebel like Ken. The master reveals that his brother was driven mad by his attempts to master Hado, telling them to cleanse their bodies of Hado after using their ki via meditation. Again, small touch, but I was like, that is a really clever touch to sort of explain that it's got a corruptible it's corruptible, and then like you use it, and then you meditate and you chill and you relax and you cleanse.
Force, man, it's a dark side. Yeah.
It is such an element of that, because it's also heavily based around balance. As we kind of learn, no person can really control one side. It's about balance. But without that I'm Rey Skywalker nonsense from the Star Wars. Somehow Palpatine has returned. What? Let's not get off topic. Back with Ken and Ryo, who are looking at the names of those who have trained before at the dojo. They're left puzzled as to why Goki's name has been turned over. And there is a funny scene where they're like, who's Dan? Because there's like all these traditional Japanese names, and then you've got Dan. Now, of course, that's directly from the game, but it is just like, who's Dan? I laughed at that. Later, they're trying to summon their own Hadouken, but Ken is getting frustrated. Angry, he gets into words with Goken and is sent to do push-ups. But he watches on as Ryo is able to summon the power utilising Goken's methods. But when he tries to follow suit, he can only slightly summon it. He's still struggling. He walks to his bag, finds the book, and then finds a method that allows him to summon. And you can tell immediately, even if you don't know the games, that this method isn't good, as it requires quite an intense stance. It's that Akuma stance. Ken shows it off to Ryo, but the vibe, and I guess the energy in the air, gets the attention of Goku, who calls him inside.
Ken, how did you do that?
Goku demands to know where he learned that, and Ken tries to lie, claiming it came naturally. You can tell immediately Ken is not a good liar, because Goku isn't falling for it though, and Ken does reveal a book and his knowledge of a different path. Goku, rather than getting angry wherever, I guess that's not a smart idea, tries to tell Ken, look, it's an unstable path and can lead to dark ways, and asks Ken, look, trust me on this, and Ken agrees to. And Goku sends him away on the promise to not reveal what he knows to Ryu. Look, don't tell Ryo what you've learned, and so on. I, again, will say, it seems so obvious where this was going. I figured we were going to see the parallels of Goku and Ken both succumbing to the darkness, Ryu having to fight a dark Ken, Goku having to fight a dark Goku, and all that. Not quite.
No, I mean, after finishing it, I kind of get what the Master's trying to say now. Like, I wonder if he thought, like, maybe him using it, obviously from part of the darkness part of it, might have summoned.
He was always worried about that, but I also think we missed something throughout the entire. I think we missed Goku clocking that Ryo was the weaker mentally and would more likely be corrupted by it, which is why he didn't want Ryo to be told about it. That Ryo was more likely to fail because Ken wanted it more, maybe more than Ryo did, and so on. But always at the back of his mind that the use of that might get the attention of Akuma. I've seen the book bothers Goken, and we flash back to him and Goku training. One night, Goken found Goku transcribing elements of the Master Scroll in a book, and that's the book Ken is using. It appears as though Goku was sick of being held back and wanted to release his true potential, had started to let Hado consume him. This is shot really well. Again, Star Wars parallel, but in the darkness where he's scrolling a book with like half the darkness covering one side of his face, with his eye looking a bit like mad on the other one. I got very, very much Anakin Skywalker corrupted by the dark side elements more than anything else.
Goki, 何やってるか分かってんのか? 電車を見ることは禁じられてるじゃないか。見つかったらどうすんだ?
Back in current times, Goku burns the book through pure anger. Great! Again, the effects. I thought, wait, is that book really on fire in his hand? Like, that's how good it is. That bursting into flames. That night around the campfire, Goku agrees to answer any of the questions. This is where I fall in love with Goku. Just this really natural, comfortable thing where he's like, right, time to answer some questions. Ask me whatever you want.
Yeah, again, referencing the culture. It's like one of those scenes where he's sitting there drinking the tea, the 4 teas, and he's passing it around. So again, like Shenmue sort of
It's
style,
very culturally accurate. It really feels it. And as a person that doesn't know much about Japanese culture outside of videos and games and elements like that, it is just really comfortable to see this, you know? Goku reveals his past, the war, and the death of his parents during it. I was like, oh my god. How, of course, look at the date. And then bring in World War II and what obviously happened to Japan and their part in World War. Oh man, I was like, this really, really works. Yeah, Goku and Goku were adopted by the Dojo Master and trained under him. Ken and Ryo ask about Goku, and Goku reveals that he is dead like his master. And I'm like, but he's not. You know? That's enough though, and they're sent to get some rest. Ryo is having a nightmare and wakes up to Ken dressed. Ken wants to go out to a local town, and Ryo agrees mainly out of loyalty. And I noticed it here. I was like, man, it doesn't take much for Ryo to be talked into something, does it? And I was like, that's... And like only after do I clock all that and go, that was kind of the point, wasn't it? It takes nothing. He's so impressionable.
Yeah, he's so he's very easily corruptible.
He's very easily led. That's the truth of it. They go to a bar and Ryo is overawed by the experience. Ken fits right in, women on his arms from the moment he sits down. However, they're both distracted by the sounds of a crowd and find an underground fighting arena. It's a fighting tournament, and the pair watch some of the fights unimpressed by the skills on show. Talking shit, some military guys overhear them, and Ken is goaded into fighting and bringing Ryo into it. Ryo, initially hesitant, does fight, but weirdly, I'm not entirely sure why, we kind of cut away from it, but instead see the aftermath and the pair having some drinks. We see the military guys in the background being helped out, clearly haven't had their asses kicked. I found it quite a funny moment and a light moment out of all the serious stuff that's going on.
And they didn't need to show it.
No, I don't think they did either.
We knew they were going to win.
Yeah, there was no question.
Yeah, exactly. They're more powerful, they're better trained. So it wasn't like they showed 10 minutes of them beating the crap out of them.
Even if it had been a minute, it would have been a squash at most. Yeah. So why? And I do like the comedy side of this, and I think it's a good bonding moment between Ken and Ryu. Because the next morning they're hungover.
That escalated quickly.
You think?
Thanks, guys. We should toast. Bartender, 2 shots of your strongest stuff.
And it's quite clear that Goku knows as well. And I got it as well. I was like, yeah, he, as their master and their father, will know they've got to let off some steam.
Yes.
So he'll say he won't make a thing of it, but they will still have to train.
Yes.
That's their punishment. They get a shock though. Ken's father is here and wants to talk to Ken alone. As they walk off, Goku reveals to Ryu that Ken's father wants him to come home. The man himself reveals this to Ken, wanting Ken to come home. I built this company and I want you to basically start learning to take over it. Later, Ken finds Ryu deep in thought and they eat together. I know this is a slow film, but I love scenes like this. Ryu sitting on the roof of the dojo, Ken bringing the noodles. Sit down together. Ken explained to Ryu that he now understands why his father left him with Goku, and that he understands his father was building something for him long term. Love these moments of Ken coming to terms with elements of his own life.
Yeah, because obviously when you see the car scene, it's like you think, oh, okay, he's been abandoned. He hasn't really been abandoned.
No.
His father was sent him there to train mentally, you know.
Ken understanding that his father was grieving, couldn't cope. It wasn't necessarily the right thing to do, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing to do, whatever. And in fact, Ken reveals he thanked his father for bringing him to the dojo, but refused to leave.
Yeah, because even like you had the scene where his father was actually fighting with them.
Well, we're going to get to that.
So we went past a bit, yeah.
But Ken's saying, look, I'm building something for myself here, and I want to finish it. This is home, and Ryu and Goku are his family. I was like, oh man, this is so sweet. Before they go off to spar with Ken's father, who is a boxer. And it's like, okay, there's a kind of nice little hint. Yeah. Ryu asks Ken about a strange kind of key that hangs over the place, also revealing he's been having strange dreams. Ken doesn't quite have the same vibes, but he does agree that Goku is hiding something about this specific place. There's a good training montage with Ken's father and the duo that utilises Street Fighter music, because we should say it's not just stances and moves and stuff like that. You do often hear themes here and stuff like that. And I think this is a good scene that helps bond the father and son.
Yep.
Back to 1958 and in the woods, Goku is being his usual cranky self. We see that Goku started to bond with his master's niece, and Goku was jealous. During a training fight, things got serious between Goku and Goku, and the latter was defeated much to his anger. Furious, he unleashes a shuriken on his brother, then a Hadouken, which Goku narrowly avoids. Goku knocks his brother down using a Tatsumaki Senpaikaki and goes to Hadouken him, but the niece stops him. It got quite nasty little fight, this one. The master now arrives and orders Goku to stop. The path Gokyon is revealed, and Goken blames the niece's influences on him. Goken is calling to the master and it is revealed that Goki is leaving, apologising to his brother and claiming this is where they part ways. Goki claims that there will be adversaries from this point on, as he has learned there can only ever be one master of an Onsatsuken at one time. And I thought that's a really clever little thing, isn't it? Very Highlander, there can only be one. Goki continues to unravel the lies of the Master, but the Master shouts him down and exiles him. So I think this is a really interesting element as well, but the idea that there can only ever be one, and the Master may not have been completely honest about that aspect, because this is where the balance goes off, really, more than anything else. Goki thanks him for looking after him. I like that scene where Goki's, look, thank you for everything you've given me, training me this far, and bows and leaves. Who's still very respectful at this stage. It's just a path he's on. Goken, pleased with the master, but pleads with the master, but he says it's too late. Goken goes off to Goki, but finds the niece crying in his room. She blames Goken for not doing enough, but Goken is able to catch up with Goki at the gate. Goki again tries to tell Goken where their fates are headed, but Goken claims, look, you're only thinking like this because you're sick. Please reconsider, and all of that kind of thing. Goki does seem to consider it, but the master arrives and is basically like, get out of my house, prick! In so many words. In a less, like, garish way. Goki says his goodbyes, claiming they will meet again. Back with Ken and Ryo. Their training continues under Goken. It's time to try and hit each other with a Hadoken. Ken gets close, but it's Ryo who looks like he might get there first. However, he refuses to throw it and walks away. And I was like, this is Ryo's weakness. Unable to sleep, Ryo goes for a walk in the nearby woods. In the piece, he remembers the moment as a young child he was handed over to Goken by the local old madman. Ryo had been found wandering alone in the woods. Goken was kind, and this brings Ryo peace, and he fully summons a Hadoken. But Ken arrives at the wrong time and is hit by it. Ryo carrying the dead Ken back. Goken, though, able to revive him using his ki. So, good little series of scenes there.
Yeah, it also expresses the powerful of the Hadoken. It can
kill. It can kill, particularly when not controlled. But it also shows why Ryo might be closer to Goken and to Ken. Ken had a father. Ken had a family. Ryo had nobody.
He was abandoned.
He was abandoned, The next day, Goken reveals that they can use their ki to also defend against Hado. It will still hurt. But it's the difference between knocked out, cold, or killed. And I was like, this is awesome. This is how you explain blocking in the game. Because you block in Street Fighter, you can... But you will still take damage.
A little bit damage,
yeah, you will. Something stops the lesson, though, and Goken sends the pair away. We get a brief flash of chaos at the dojo on what looks like Akuma. I mean, here's the thing. It plays around with Akuma and who and what he is. But if you know the game, you recognise him immediately, if not just for the beads. The big beads around his neck, which also happen to be on Goki and Goken's master. So you can link all of this together quite easily. Goken sends in something, heads back to the dojo. Ken and Ryo, who are off to get water, stop, and Ryo gets a strange sense. And Ryo encourages Ken to focus, and he starts to feel it too. They realise something is wrong as a head back. I love that they're like, it's not that they hear something, it's the senses.
It's the Jedi power, man. It's like...
there's been a disturbance in the Force.
Yeah, exactly,
Goken is being confronted by a man, Akuma, and it's basically there can be only one, Highlander.
This is a brilliant thing.
Goken refuses to fight him and offers him the title of Master of Ansatsuken because, look, I don't even want it, bro. You want it? I'm not using it. I don't train in it. Take it. Akuma kind of goes, all right then, but you're going to have to bow to me.
惨めなやつめひざまずいて許しを請えば助けてやろうそれとも地獄にいる老いぼれに会いに行くか
刀剣先生
ダメだここに来てはならん先生やめろさま測ったなまずガキどもやってしまおう 奴らはお前に関係ない。よし、俺が戦う。
Like, I want that honor. But Ken and Ryu arrive, and hearing him call Goku master, he's like, Dick, you're lying. You're a master and you're training 2 kids. And he threatens to kill Ken and Ryu. So Goku agrees to fight him. That we will fight, but not today. And I was a bit like, that's weird. Because, like, what if Akuma's kind of like, yeah, all right then. I'll wait for the right time and leave. Now, I realise it's a showcase of power.
Yes.
And that fate is decided that it will happen no matter what. And Akuma subscribes to that same fate and path. But I was a bit like, Goku's like, well, that day ain't never fucking coming, mate. You know what I mean? I ain't never going to do it. But I realise it doesn't work that way. That's a dishonourable path that I'm thinking of. The honourable way of doing things mean that eventually it will have to happen.
I saw it as, again, as a Star Wars reference. Obi-Wan not finding his force. In the series, he's weak. He had to lock himself back into the Force and find his ability, and he wanted to make sure they're both fully, associated with the Hado before they could fight. You know,
right? Okay.
That...
Okay. I didn't really see it that way, but if you did, cool. Akuma walks away. Ken and Ryu see his back and ask Goku who it is, and Goku's like, "That's the man who killed my master." And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's it. Dance around who it really is.
Yeah.
We then flash back to Goki during a moment with his master, and they reveal that the star is born out of fire, death, and war. Elements that are kept from them. This infuriated Goki, whose body is being twisted by the bad Ki. We see Akuma looking over his shoulder, as we now see that Goki aggressively grabbed the niece by the throat and was ashamed of what he did afterwards. He explains to her that he has chosen his path, and now we reveal that they were in a love affair, a secret love affair, and he kisses her goodbye. She actually chased after him outside the dojo and gave him food for his journey. It's a nice scene. They share a moment. Before she gives him a Japanese character, one that represents immortal glory, and the same one that obviously Akuma has on his back. And I was like, I've written it here, Goki is Akuma. Let's just clear that up now, because annoyingly, the film will still try to pretend, or not, will still dance around that fact rather than spelling, like, this was the moment, because it's done in slow motion. Akuma, look, let's reveal it here.
Yeah.
Have Goku say to them, that is my brother. Do you know what I mean? Let's just do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see the problem with that. It wouldn't change the narrative.
No, it wouldn't. But it's I guess it's just for the suspense. You know, it's obvious.
But no, there is no suspense when we know it. I guess, I know that, like, it's Akuma's a demon that's inhabited the body of Goki and stuff like that, but it's still the same thing.
Obviously, this was a TV series and stuff, so I would have presumed it would have gone black.
Cliffhanger here, yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about a negative. I think Akuma looks a bit stupid. So what they've done, it's not the same actor that played Goki who's Akuma. Yeah. Of course it's not. Yeah. It's not. And this guy's a bit of a hench beast and all that. But, like, the makeup they've given him to give him the twisted features, the hair up, the beads... I think he just looks a bit stupid.
Yeah, I mean the beads.
I don't think he's that threatening, other than the size.
The face, it's to me, it clearly looks like a mask.
It's prosthetics. Yeah, they've added prosthetics really to twist his face and elements like that, to give him a big forehead and accentuated cheekbones and elements like that. And I don't love it. I also don't love his voice. I think it's a little bit wispy. I think it should have been deeper.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hello. And it's like, what? It should have been more. That kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. We continue to follow Goki as he hiked, climbing up a mountain and collapsing. Waking up, he's clearly sick and very disorientated, but he finds himself at the entrance of a massive cave. When we talked earlier on about locations, I mean, look at this part of him climbing in this area. Love it. Something compels him to go in, and he finds it's the perfect environment for him to stay and continue his training. There, over time, he grew stronger and even more powerful, but the sickness would always surface. His goal, Dark Hado. Life went on at the dojo, even though Goku was missed, and Goku reveals it's been months and that he has made peace with Goki's decision. He tries to make Denise see this, but she rejects him. She is confronted by her uncle, who claims she is hindering Goku's training because of her love for Goki, and he demands that she sees Goki as dead, and she quietly agrees. 6 months later, Goki has advanced and is able to summon a very powerful Doken. Goku queries the purpose of the teaching, considering the danger to his master, who points out that he is living proof that the light and darkness can be balanced. And I got that from a man that had fought in the war, so seeing the dark and evil side of humanity, and then obviously finding peace afterwards.
Yep.
He tells Goku that no one can harness one aspect of the power, it needs to be in balance. Let's not do any more Star Wars references. But
yeah.
Having collapsed from his latest feat, Goki awakes and sees his face is transformed in a reflection of a pool. He also finds his voice is different, declaring that his master was right. Believing that he is to die now if he doesn't become stronger, Goki carries on. 1 year later, the Goku we knew is gone. What emerges from the cave is something else. Living with nature, getting stronger and stronger every day, all in preparation for his ultimate battle with Gokin. Years later, Gokin reveals to the niece that his training is almost complete and lets slip that he might love her, and he asks her to be with him. Brother's sloppy seconds.
Yeah.
She fobs him off though and brings up Goki, but as he goes to leave, she makes him promise he'll come back from his pilgrimage. Leaving his old life behind, Goki is burning keepsakes and pictures, even the Japanese character she gave him. His power is increased to the point where one night he causes a red lightning storm seen by his old master. Outstanding visuals.
Yeah,
I think it's horror.
Yeah.
It's near horror, right?
Yeah.
The next day, Gokin hasn't been asleep but felt it. Speaks to his master, reveals that it may have been Goki, and that he either died from such power or has become something much darker and more powerful. The Akuma demon. Gokin asks what they do, and the master's basically like, I don't know. I don't really know. But claims, look, if it's Akuma, he's going to come here, bro. Gokin asks to face Akuma, but the master's like, no, mate, that's my job, you know? He orders Goku to look after his niece and the scrolls, claiming there is more he can learn from them that Goki didn't. Goku's training continues until one day he spars with his master, and having made him proud, he is sent on his warrior's pilgrimage. Embracing Gokin, they share one last meal together. A nice scene. Yeah. We're slowly building up to this because we kind of already know from a brief flash earlier on that this master is going to die.
Yeah. So
it's kind of a nice little scene with them. And that night, Akuma comes and the master confronts him. As Akuma unleashes his power, Gokin is awoken in bed at a different dojo and races it off. The master actually almost wins. Like, it's a good scene because it's like he is powerful.
He kicks his ass off.
He does. Yeah. But he's inevitably defeated and killed. Akuma takes his master's bees and puts them on himself. Having arrived as the enemy explosion happened, Gokin picks himself up and finds the destruction and sees Goki from a distance. He demands Goki fight him, but Goki refuses on the basis, look, you ain't ready. Proven by the pants fireball that he kind of throws. It's like,
he should be glad he walked away because he would have snapped him.
Yeah, but I get his thinking. He can't just let him walk away.
Yeah.
Goki, なんてことしたんだ。待って貴様。俺と戦え。
The entire event left scars that drove Gokin and his now wife apart. She eventually leaving him and leaving him a note that he should go on his pilgrimage. I thought that was really strong stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's levels of like Gokin character development, and this is what I was talking about at the start, where I'm like, is it really Ken and Ryu's story, or is it more about Gokin and Goki?
I mean, I would have loved more for this when it finished, like more detail, more in depth. But
I'm not complaining, that's the thing. Yeah, I love the Gokin and Goki story.
It's 50-50, but I think if we had got more of this after this finished, then like more with Ryu and Ken, then I think it would have been perfect.
Right, I
but
see
because
what you're
this
thinking.
is all we had.
Yeah, we'll get into that at the end. There is more.
Okay,
there is more.
Which obviously I'm not aware of, so...
Anyway, Goki carried on at the dojo until eventually he left for his pilgrimage and returned as the man he is now. We now cut to all three, Gokin, Ken and Ryu leaving that dojo behind. Training finished there. They've reached a point of the story where it's time to go back to Gokin's dojo.
Yep.
1 year later, Ken and Ryu have become adept at Hado skills. I love that time jump. Because we don't need to see them training anymore. No. Let's just get there. And Gokin tells them, look, it's going to be time for you to soon leave. I've got nothing left to teach you. You're going to have to take your own warrior pilgrimage. And you can tell that affects Ryu and Ken, and I can imagine, because it's like, it's always been coming, but like, yeah,
it's a big shot, yeah.
We get a little montage of their training to the Ryu theme, and goaded by the old man, they both throw Hadokens over the water. Ken is angered when his doesn't go as far as Ryu, especially as that old man mocks him, jumping around, constantly laughing at Ken. Stupid foreigner. Yeah. More training back at Gokun's dojo. This was a bit of a problem for me. We've done a fair few training montages, yet we're now still doing them. I was kind of like, let's get on with it.
I get it.
I don't. No. I disagree. Not at this stage.
Yeah.
We can't learn anything new. We know where the story's heading. We know that Goku will have to face off against Goki. Let's get there a little quicker, right? But their training is interrupted by the arrival of Goku, who has been to town and got supplies. Ken has something from his dad. It's Mega Man 2! This is bad acting.
Yeah.
It's awful acting. It's adorable because, Sega, Mega Man 2 and all that. But, Capcom should I say. But like their acting's really cheesy. They're practically jumping in the air, going high five.
Yeah, it is. But I thought it was funny. Like, they're playing like the snares.
Yeah, because it's the era though. Yeah. It's the era, so they're really excited about it. And they run off like kids to play it.
Hey, cool. It's for my dad. Huh? Oh shit! Mega Man 2! Woo! Let's go. Thanks, Icho. What?
In different areas, both Goku and Akuma seem to come to the moment they know it's fight time. Big fan of that.
Yep.
It's not like a send him a note, carry a pigeon, smoke signal to say, all right, bro, let's fight. It's like a sense.
Yeah.
It just switches and it's like, right, it's time. Ken and Ryu run into Goku as he tells them it's time for the next stage. 3 days and 3 nights in the wilderness, returning to face each other in an anything goes fight, including Hado. Ken and Ryu say their goodbyes and head off in different directions. What I love a lot about these scenes is we don't get surliness from either of them. We don't get arguments. We don't get Ken going, I don't want to fight Ryu, or Ryu saying I want to fight Ryu. Like, they accept this as part of their training and go off. You know? I like that.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
Separately, they both train hard and prepare for the fight. Ken, meditating near the lake, is taunted by the old man as per usual. We now, though, see how Ken has learned to take his anger and aggression to channel his ki in a positive way. Like, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's not about Ken being corrupted. It's about Ken finding... Ryu uses peace and serenity to find his place. Yeah. Ken finds his anger and frustration, but uses it. Not in angry ways, but in a, I can channel it to this. And Ryu obviously does his version to channel his ki.
Yeah.
Cut back to them at the dojo and it's fight time. Big fan that we didn't go too long here. And we just cut straight back to them here and it's fight time.
Yep.
Goken speaks to Ryu first and basically gives him advice. Let go of your fear. And then he also does the same to Ken and tells him, look, use your aggression, but be focused. I love that he gives them both advice based off what they characters are. They fight by the lake, and it is a very good fight. Love the dedication to the game with the stances and the moves. Ken bopping on his feet. Yeah. God, that's good shit, right?
Yeah, literally, they nailed the aspect of the game.
They did. Especially seeing what they have learned with Hado and using it both offensively and defensively. I thought that was a really good touch. They are, of course, quite equally matched, but it does look like Ken has won, and I was surprised. I thought this would be the obviously Ryu wins fight. But Ryu gets back up, and he is angry, and Ken's like, look, it's over, calm down, tries to talk to him, but Ryu ends up attacking him, revealing in a shocking moment that it's him who has channeled Bad Hado. And at that same moment, Goldkin realises we do. Oh, it feels it as well, like what we do. And I was like, that's a bit of a twist.
His face,
it is terrible.
It's all dark.
They do thing with his eyebrows. Yeah. It looks terrible.
I mean, it looks like just like mascara. Sort of.
It's terrible. Yeah. It's a terrible look. Ken awakes to see Ryu being tortured by it, and angry, he demands Ryu continues to fight. Ken throws a weak fireball, but only angers Ryu, who turns to reveal the early stages of his transformation. He starts to use the Bad Hado to make a devastating fireball as Ken runs to attack. Meanwhile, Goku races put to a stop to things. You can kind of see where this is going. But, again, in a surprising moment, Ken ducks and manages to get the Ryu first, hitting him with a shuriken. That is super powerful, flaming fist and all. Ryu's fireball flies off into the sky, where it is seen by Akuma, and Ken picks up Ryu and calls for his master. Great end to that little sequence.
Yep.
Back in the dojo, Ryo is badly hurt and Ken is glad when he comes around. Goken sends Ken away as Ryo needs rest, and he talks to Ken about what he felt, accusing Ken of having tapped in the dark Hado. Now, this makes sense because Ken had been the one that was looking down that path, and like, Goken's like, dude, look at your fist. It's on fire. That ain't normal shit. And Clay, because I didn't, you know, but the Flaming Fist does say otherwise. But Ryo awake, speaks up and says, look, it wasn't him. It was me.
For me, that scene there, when I saw that was for me when Ryo was stepping back on the right path, the fact that he admitted it.
Yeah. Also, it's clear, like, basically for me, that they have both found balance. This is about balance, and it's what they'll be going forward. Able to use both balanced, as provided they get the training and the mindset to actually do it. Because later Goken writes in his diary that he believes that Kuma will come now and will go after Ryo. Because Kuma, seeing that fireball, will see that as a challenge, basically. Like a signal flare. All right, you're throwing fireballs now, bro.
A beacon to let
Yep, yeah. The next day... Idiot. The next day after checking in with them, Goken declares it's time for them to go, as soon as tomorrow. Naturally, neither Ken or Ryo want to leave, but Goken tells them, look, it's painful. But it is a necessary step. It hurts him too. They are his sons. While Ryo rests, Goken walks with Ken and talks about how far he has come, and he is proud. One of my favourite scenes to do that with Ken as well. Because let's be honest, in the games, Ken was always like the lesser. Ryo's, when you think Street Fighter, who do you think of? Ryo, maybe Guile, maybe M. Bison.
Street Fighter, it's always been Ryo. He's always been like the main, the main character.
We used to laugh about how Ryo and Ken were basically the same, but one more red, one more white. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. But Goken confides in Ken, look, I'm worried about Ryo and how the Dark Hado awoke in him. And basically, look out for him. Don't, like, when you leave, look out for him. And I was like, cool, that suggests that they would stay together because Ryo's got no one else. So Ken's not just going to be like, go, stay with me, basically. Goken has to finish his path now. It ends with Goki. In the web series, this last section, this last 10, 12 minutes is the last episode of the web series. And it's been highly criticised for all, and I 100% agree, even in the context of the film. Because basically, what we effectively get is flashbacks leading to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, after they've been sent away, I even paused it and I checked the timestamp, and I saw there was like 10 minutes left. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen in 10 minutes. It
was worse for me. I checked the timestamp with about 2 minutes left, and I was like, what the hell? I'd forgotten because it'd been 9 years since I watched this. But it is time to go, and they're gifted with gloves that can withstand Hado and do one last stance montage with Goken, which was weird. Kind of how we started, except this time they're on his level. It's about showing, because originally he just did a shuriken on his own. Now they all do it together. They leave. It's a tough one for all and very sweet. The last great scene in this is this scene. Them leaving, but leaving with confidence. And it's Goken is the one that nearly breaks down in tears. That guy is such a great actor.
100%.
Absolutely. He holds this show together. Really, really do. Loved it. The last part of the film is dedicated, or should be dedicated, to Goken and Goki and their face-off. It's a powerful face-off between brothers and their motivations to get to this point. Even if the many flashbacks of what we've already seen feels unnecessary. Because that's what we do. We flash back to how we got here. And then they talk a little bit. And then they take their stances. And then it just ends. And that's it. And yeah, I could see a lot of people being pissed off by that. Now, apparently the reason being it ended this way is because this had to be canon. This is canon. And to ensure it didn't fuck with the games, because let's be honest, one of them had to die.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty obvious that the master's going to get killed.
I thought actually maybe it would be Akuma, that's a big problem more than anything else. Yeah, like, you know, the villain does.
Yeah, I suppose if we're going like the good and evil. It's
evil doesn't win in the end, so it kind of ends. But it is an abrupt ending and a disappointing ending. I am disappointed we didn't even see, like, perhaps had we had a little bit of a fight, maybe Akuma gets beaten, but then runs away. Like that kind of thing, like a coward. That, and like Goken's like, he will go and get stronger and return again and stuff like that. But just to have them go, and then it just end, it's like, really?
Yeah, disappointing.
運命に従う用意はできてるだろうな兄さん
俺の愛した俺の弟はとうの昔に死んだ今残っているのは悪魔だかつて俺は誓ったそして今日俺はその誓いを破る
So, a sequel series, Street Fighter World Warrior, which would have seen Ryu and Ken come into conflict with M, Bison, and Shadaloo, was in development. But was eventually scrapped in favour of Street Fighter Resurrection, which serves as a tie-in to Street Fighter V. There is a 4-episode show that continues this story set 10 years later, but focuses on Ken and Ryu.
Same character.
From what I've seen, the same actors.
Okay, excellent.
Same actors. So we will cover that in the future, and we'll see what that brings up. But for now, that was Street Fighter Assassin's Fist. Look, it needs tidying up. What I think they did wrong, right, was web series, fine. Mm-hmm. Watching those episodes 10, 12 minutes, no problem. What they've done is take it all and jam it together. What they should have done to make it a movie was edit. And go through it and go, right, let's snip this part, let's snip these parts, let's remove some of this training montage, let's tidy this bit up here. And maybe had it been around 2 hours long, I think it's a much stronger movie. It's nearly 2.5 hours long. It's about 2:28 overall. It's just too long. Yeah. And the problem is that when you break it down, does it warrant 2.5 hours? I don't think it does.
I mean, if you take away a lot of the training sequence, it could have easily been an hour and 50.
I think elements could have been tidied up better. I think, for example, some things are really drawn out. I think while I did really enjoy the Goki, I think they would not get to the point quick enough. And I think like that could have been done quicker. Like even Goki becoming Akuma feels like it takes too long.
I mean, I can see how it works in a TV series.
Yep.
But in a film,
it's drawn out.
It's yeah.
It is a problem with it. That being said, I fucking enjoyed the shit out of this again. I really did. I loved so much about this. I loved how it looks, how it sounds, how it ties into the video games. Cleverly, but not egregiously. How it uses Japanese culture in a respectful, smart way, but also ties the sort of silliness of Street Fighter into reality. I love how it keeps Ken and Ryu at the focal point, but also focuses on the incredible characters of Goken and Goki, and even the secondary characters like the Master and the Niece and elements like that. I love how it's shot. I love how it sounds. I love the fight sequence. I love a lot of I love the stances. I enjoyed a lot of the trainings. I love some of the humour. It's this. I love this movie. It's
the best thing from Street Fighter. I mean, it's the first one.
As of right now.
Well, as of right now, yeah. But I mean, I always associate a great series with the fact that when I first put this on, I saw it was 2.5 hours long. I thought, here we go again. It's going to be another ball for 2 hours, another Double Dragon, blah blah blah. But then 10 minutes into it, I was so hooked that I turned off the Xbox and I had it in front of me. And I watched the whole literally all the way through, and I mean, it's the best. It's a very, very good adaptation from Street Fighter, and it nails it. I'm going to say it's one of my favourites that we've seen in a long time.
This is what Street Fighter should be. In the fact that instead of trying to create this overarching world, we focus on individual characters more than anything else. They want to try this again with the Chun-Li movie, except there they get it completely fucking wrong. We'll cover that in the future. But more of this cleverness where we're seeing how they get to where they are and elements like that. I think that's what you need to do with Street Fighter going forward.
And the cast nailed it. The cast absolutely nailed it.
Like I said at the start, I do think there's some dodgy acting here and there, but I actually put it down to dialogue. Weirdly enough, it is anytime English is involved, that seems to be the problem. When it's Japanese, when everyone's speaking the Japanese and we've got traditional Japanese actors, they are nailing it, absolutely nailing it. The biggest negative, let's be honest, the biggest negative is probably Akuma.
Yeah.
It's just how he looks and how he sounds.
Yeah.
And like, mostly he just sits up in the mountains until like he's like, all right, someone wants me to fight now.
Yeah, it's time now. Yeah.
It's just like, Goki is a better character than Akuma is. Do you know what I mean? Like that side of things. But it's still hard to fault because he's not in it enough to ruin it or damage it. And man, and I could watch Gokin and interact with Ken and Ryu and his brother and all elements like that all day long.
I mean, as you said, it's a very, very strong 7 to 8 out of 10. Yeah, so yeah, easily. Yeah.
I mean, I gave it 9 back in the day. I was too generous, but my God, even talking back through, I'm like, still a great fucking film.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's your thoughts on Street Fighter Assassin's Fist? You know what to do? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It is gratefully appreciated. You can find us over at gbhbl.com, our full website where reviews, news and so much more goes up daily. We're also on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, at gbhbl. Just search for gbhbl and you will find us out there. We also have merchandise on sale. You can access the shop via the website.